in my head, my head, my head, my head, my head, my. In my shamanic practice, the Hungarian Bakshi tradition, I was taught to feel into the energies present and give them sound. It's not my job to decide which sounds get to be heard, or if I like the sounds or not, it doesn't matter. My job is to listen, feel, and share whatever is arising. 14 years ago, when I first began studying with my teacher, Frank Peters, I was coming from a theater background. I didn't want to make dark, cracked, or broken sounds. I'd trained as a singer since I was a kid. Everything in me wanted to make beautiful, light, melodic sounds. After a musical performance, people would say, "You have such a lovely voice." And I knew I'd done it right. I liked doing it right and being complimented. As I began offering shamanic sessions, I would push down the ugly sounds and ignore arising energy that might sound weird. Afterwards, people would say, "You have a lovely voice." Yet I didn't feel like I'd done it right somehow. I knew the sessions weren't very powerful. It wasn't until I accepted that the sessions weren't about me and I learned to get out of the way that they began to have an impact. When I stopped trying to control the process and started fully allowing every sound to have its rightful space. I've always wanted to have an impact, to be a contribution to the world. I think most of us do, especially those of us who find our way to Naropa. When I was very little, I announced to my parents that I was going to be a doctor when I grew up so I could help people. This lasted until I was 12 and fell madly in love with C. Thomas Howell, who played Pony Boy in the movie The Outsiders. I knew we were destined to be married, and therefore I had to become an actor so, I could meet him, because that's important if you're going to get married. Because this necessitated a change in career plans, I decided that acting would be my way of contributing to the world. I would be an artist. My crush didn't last, but I found a lifelong passion for theater and for performance as a vehicle to inspire social change. I believe we are all born with the capacity to love and the desire to care for one another, even if this instinct is sometimes buried over time through abuse, neglect, and trauma. Giving back can also be a survival mechanism. It was for me. I was born premature with underdeveloped lungs. I nearly died several times before age 5 from asthma. Right as I was starting to outgrow the asthma, I was diagnosed with a form of muscular dystrophy. Initially, doctors said I wouldn't live to adulthood. Eventually, they decided I would live, yet I wouldn't be able to walk by the time I was 20. I'm 48. Clearly, that prediction didn't come true. Yet it was embedded in the story of my childhood. My mother was convinced I wouldn't be able to take care of myself and I would grow up to be a burden on my parents and on society. Her sister tells the story of them having coffee and my mother crying about her crippled child. My aunt looked out the window and I was running across the backyard. I did end up needing extensive surgery for clubbed feet. Afterwards, at age 13, I taught myself to walk again because they didn't offer me physical therapy. I am here today due to an excellent pediatric surgeon and driving terror at the thought of being a burden on the world. Yeah. My surgeries were successful. I'm very lucky and was privileged to be able to go to good doctors and hospitals. Yet as I got into my 20s and 30s, I had chronic, debilitating arthritis in my feet. This led me to seek out alternative healing therapies when Western medicine had nothing left to offer me but clunky orthotics, leg braces, and pain medication. Through Reiki and shamanic healing, I was able to find complete freedom from the arthritis, ditch the braces, and regenerate nerves and muscles that doctors said were gone for good. This ultimately led me to Naropa as well. I started the MFA in Contemporary Performance program in 2014 with a goal of combining my theater and shamanic paths. As part of the program, we studied body-mind centering, which completely changed my way of being in my body and moving. We also studied Roy Hart voice work. At the Roy Hart Center in France, they study the human voice without boundaries and believe that everyone has the capacity for an 8-octave voice and that all sounds are equal. This was very compatible with my shamanic training. In the MFA program, I found myself as a person and an artist, and I made true peace with my muscular dystrophy. I learned to live with and manage the symptoms and to know they don't define me. When I graduated in 2016, as the Naropa brochure promised, I had been transformed. And I was ready to transform the world through shamanic performance. I just needed to rest a little first. It had been 2 wonderful years and intense years of grad school. It made sense that I was tired. What didn't make sense was that the more I rested, the more tired I became. I wasn't bouncing back. I didn't understand. A year later, after numerous visits to many different doctors, I was diagnosed with chronic Lyme disease. By this time, I was in bed 14 to 20 hours a day, in addition to extreme fatigue, digestive challenges, daily fevers, and chronic joint pain. I had concussion-like symptoms. I couldn't stand light or sound. I had brain fog and couldn't remember anything. I'd always been able to memorize pages and pages of dialogue with ease. Now I couldn't remember something I'd read 5 minutes before. On top of this, I'm single. My parents are gone. I have no siblings. I had to pay rent, feed myself, manage my health care while barely being able to remember how to call the pharmacy to get a prescription refilled. Not to mention that it's incredibly expensive to be sick in this country. I was not okay with this. I had done a GoFundMe campaign for grad school and received $11,000 from people who supported my vision of changing the world through my art. I felt so much guilt and shame that I wasn't doing what I promised. Instead of starting my own theater company, I was stuck in bed for days on end. I had had a plan. I'd come to terms with my disability, and now suddenly I had another one? I didn't want this sound. I was supposed to be the phoenix rising from the ashes, and instead I was going down in flames again. I didn't want to accept any of this. But one thing about being in bed, unable to read, watch TV, listen to music, or even audiobooks, there were no distractions, and I had nowhere to run and nothing else to do but be with whatever was arising moment to moment. I remembered my training. I felt into the energies in my body, and I gave them sound. Sometimes it was just a soft hum for my liver while it processed numerous rounds of antibiotics. Sometimes it was the grumbling of anger through clenched teeth, or the terrified cry of the little girl who was told she would be a burden. And sometimes it was the joyful laughter of moments of comfort. One day, as I was lying completely present with my body, I started wondering about all of the people in the world with Lyme disease, all the people living with any disease or discomfort, people less fortunate than I were who were suffering alone in silence. In that moment, my heart cracked open. I felt a depth of compassion for all beings that I never had before. I realized that fully embracing my own experience, my own sounds, allowed me to truly hear those of others. I thought my Lyme was about me, that it was about being human. As I started to work on this talk, I realized I wanted to put everything in the past tense. I wanted to wrap everything up in a nice, neat bow. It's done, the phoenix has risen, and the truth is, it's not that simple. That damn bird can rise and crash and burn multiple times in a day. While I'm so much better today than I was 2 years ago, I'm still tired a lot of the time. My memory is better, not what it used to be, so I use notes. I still deal with chronic pain and digestive challenges. I was able to get out of bed and start building my life again through stem cell treatment using my own stem cells from fat tissue. This treatment was incredibly effective for me, and I had my cells banked for additional doses. This summer, the FDA declared that cells harvested from this procedure are drugs and ordered a ban on the type of procedure I had. I'm currently legally barred from accessing my cells for ongoing treatment, and there's a very real possibility that a federal judge could order that they be destroyed. My stem cells were my insurance policy. I thought I had found a solution to manage my Lyme, and now I don't know what will happen tomorrow, next month, or next year. And that would be true if I was perfectly healthy. Because my energy is limited and I'm back in grad school in the Master of Divinity program, I say no to a lot of social activities, and sometimes I say yes. I'm working on a solo performance piece in my bed. Seriously, you're gonna have to come to my house to see it. When I listen to my body and accept what's happening moment to moment, even when it's not what I'd prefer, I feel genuine peace and joy. And my heart has stayed open to the suffering of the planet. I still desire to be of benefit, and I frequently recreate a practice from the MFA program. There's a Buddhist tradition of dedicating the merit of your practice for the benefit of all beings. We ended most classes with this practice as adapted with movement by Barbara Dilley. I don't have the energy usually for marches or rallies. Honestly, writing letters to my congresspeople even feels like a mountain climb some days. What I can do is be with my body, allow whatever sounds need to be heard. Think of everyone who is suffering and hear them and sound for them too, because maybe it feels too painful for them to hear and sound for themselves. And I can feel the joy of comfy pillows and Netflix on my jammy days, and the joy of times when I do have energy to venture out into the world. That's what I can contribute right now. That's my march. That's my rally. It's not glamorous. It's not what I ever envisioned my contribution would look like. And this is what I can offer. I dedicate any merit of this talk to the benefit of all beings, Barbara Dilley style. Thank you.